Well, we have a very special NBL now for you today, all thanks to Code Sports, the home of NBL coverage. And each week, we get to watch some of the brightest young stars doing what they do best. And when we chat those prospects ahead of the NBA draft next year, there's only one man to talk to, and that's the founder and co-owner of Draft Express, Jonathan Givony, who joins me now. Mate, how you been?
I've been great. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Again, the NBL season is in full swing. And again, what I love about the NBL is so unpredictable. We're getting teams in the bottom of the ladder beating the top teams, stars galore. We got so much to chat about. And that's probably where I want to start this conversation with you, because you've kept an eye on the NBL for a lot of years now. The league in general, when I ask you that, what impresses you the most about it? What is it?
I think it's the product that you guys put on. I watch a lot of games, and I just feel like the entertainment value is so high. You guys do a great job of marketing it, of promoting it across your social media channels, and all the dramas and the narratives and the stars and the young guys. And so, it all comes across my timeline, and I really enjoy it. I think you guys do a heck of a job with it. Way better than, in Europe, for sure.
You've been around the game for such a long time. So if we rewind 10 years ago to compare to, you talk about watching all the games now, how much has the NBL changed in the eyes of those people in the States? Because we continuously see all the eyeballs. Everybody's locked in. Yes, for all these young stars, but also we see the likes of the NBA players, JaVale McGee, the other end of their career, all putting their eyes on the NBL themselves. It's massive right now.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Kestelman has done an incredible job, just with the whole strategy behind the league, with a guy like Jeremy Lolliger to start with, just coming up with the Next Star program and, really using that as a springboard to attract those NBA eyeballs and, bringing in guys like LaMelo Ball and making it attractive for Australians, like Josh Giddey or Dash Daniels to stay at home. I think that's been huge. It's also, really attracted some of the, the older Australian players who have been kind of scattered around the world to, look at the NBL and say, why do I have to go play in Spain or in Italy or in Germany or whatever? I can come and make a great living, and the level of competition is super high. And, it's a great product. I mean, you could see it every game. I mean, the stands are packed, and, people are obviously watching and they're engaging, and it's just a really fun product. So I think that's been the big difference. And then the level of import has risen quite a bit. Like you said, you're seeing guys like JaVale McGee. You're seeing, a Bryce Cotton stay for so many years and be such a dominant figure. I think that's been huge with the NBL. Also, you're seeing guys like a Parker Jackson Cartwright, like usually in the past, a player like that, he comes in, he spends a year, and he goes and, makes a ton of money either in China or in Turkey or whatever. But he found a home in New Zealand, and he's obviously really happy with the quality of life. And that's one of the best things that you guys have to offer in Australia, in addition to the product. And I think players are really buying in, and, I think we're going to see more and more, like really top level Americans come through, and also elite level international players. I mean, like we're seeing now, with Kareem Lopez, for example.
We're going to chat all those exciting young next stars in particular, because we get to break them down and get to call the games. But in terms of the expert who's got their eyes on this young talent, there's no one better to go to than yourself. And perhaps before we break down each of them individually, when you're looking at this young talent and the age, the teenage, how raw they are, their potential, what are you specifically looking for, say, a 17, 18-year-old outside of America, really?
Well, it's really hard to play in a level like the Australian NBL when you're 17 or 18 years old. And I think your feel for the game, your processing speed, it needs to be so sharp at every moment on both ends of the floor to be able to hang, especially in a league like the NBL where the tempo is so high and there's not a lot of plays being called. I mean, guys are flying up and down the floor. Everybody has the freedom to take a rebound and push it off the glass. And so you're being attacked from every direction, but you also need to be a threat at all times, because if you're not someone that needs to be accounted for on the offensive end of the floor, you basically become unplayable because they're just going to hide their worst player on you. They're not going to guard you. It's a very tactical league. It's a very well scouted league. It's a very well coached league. And so there's really nowhere to hide. If you're a Dash Daniels, you're a Kareem Lopez, and you're not, making that consistent impact on both ends of the floor, in every single possession, you're going to get exposed. And so that's what I love about watching young players in the NBL, because they're being challenged every time that they're on the court. And, but we also see that level of growth too. There's a buy-in from the teams. There's a buy-in from the league. And there's an expectation from the fans and from the media that this is something that you guys do in Australia. You guys push players to the NBA every single year. And that's really unique, around the world. Even in college basketball, that's not really like a stated goal of most coaches. I mean, they say that they want to put players in the NBA and they promote the guys that get there, but it's not really like a conscious thought like it is in the NBL, where we want to take a Dash Daniels and get him into the lottery. That's a goal for us as a league. And I think it's just really impressive to see it being executed in real time and to see it be successful, to see a guy like Dash Daniels be able to play 22 minutes, like against Sydney in a really high level game, and play crunch time minutes and guarding the other team's best player. I mean, that is not something that you see every day from a 17-year-old. I mean, if he was in America, he would be a high school senior. I can't imagine any of the players who are in high school basketball in America right now playing at that level in a game like we just saw Melbourne against Sydney on Monday.
So does it come down to, when you're looking at and evaluating the overseas prospects, the next stars in particular, of understanding the type of player they were when they entered the start of the season? You talk about growth, to the type of player they are when they finish, because I know a lot of people get caught up in a box score thinking, well, he hasn't really affected the game as much. But as you perfectly pointed out, there is so much more to a whole season and those games in particular for these young stars to show that, hey, I'm 17 right now, and by the time I get to 25 and I'm in the NBA, this is the kind of player I can be.
Definitely. I mean, these players are, they're evolving on a week-to-week basis. I mean, they're going through practice and they're working in the weight room and they're getting high-level film sessions and the NBL coaching staffs have, really significant resources with their player development infrastructure and all of that. And so there is an expectation that you're going to get better week by week. And, it's not always going to happen, in a linear way. There are going to be ups and downs to every season, even, guys who are 30, 33, 35 years old. But, that's obviously the hope that, a player starts in one place and then he finishes it in another. And, that for especially with a guy like Dash Daniels, that's something that I'm going to be tracking very closely, as they make their way into the playoffs. How does this offensive confidence evolve? I mean, he started off so hot earlier in the year, and then he kind of hit a little bit of a colder stretch, and then he came back again against Sydney and, he showed that he can impact the game offensively again. And so that's just kind of what we want to see. Kareem Lopez also, I mean, the way that he got better last year, week in and week out was amazing. And then this year, I mean, he's been a totally different player for me. I mean, his level of confidence is so much higher. He's shooting the ball much better. He's creating off the dribble. He's taking some step backwards, perhaps on the defensive end. I think the Breakers as a whole have, and that's an area that we want to see more growth from him. I think as the year moves on, I mean, can he go back to being that really highly impactful defensive player that he was at times last year? And so, yeah, these are the little things that we're studying and monitoring and watching. And this is why I come back to watch NBL games every week, because first of all, it's a great product. It's entertaining. It's fun to watch. But then, I mean, there's all these high level players that you want to see, like, are they growing? Because it's a really short season at the same time, like there's only, 11 games or whatever, guys, 10, 11 games, they flew by already. And then there's only really like 4 months left. And so like, it's really going to be a sprint to the finish here for these guys.
You mentioned Dash Daniels in that Sydney game where got thrown the assignment of Kendrick Davis, one of the more elite guards we have in the NBL. And then a week before that, it was Bryce Cotton, and then going all the way back to the NBA, NBL games where he's lining up alongside Jordan Poole, Jeremiah Fears. For a 17-year-old to get those kind of primary assignments, to have that trust from Dean Vickerman, one of the greatest NBL coaches we've ever seen, what does it say about where Dash Daniels is at and what he could be?
I mean, it means that he's elite. I mean, and that's what we knew about him on the defensive end. It's what we've seen from him his whole career. But to see him do that in this kind of setting in the NBL for, a high-level defensive team like Melbourne, and to see him get that primary assignment on the Bryce Cottons and the Kendrick Davis and, all of the best players that he's going up against, that's why he was on the floor late in the fourth quarter, against Sydney, was to try and slow down Kendrick Davis. There's only so many people in the world who can slow that guy down. He's an incredible scorer. But I thought he did a good job of, fighting through screens, denying off the ball and, just using his length as much as he could and just to try and mirror him and to contain him and just not to give him anything easy because, a guy like that, you give him easy shots. I mean, he'll drop 40 on you in an instant. And so I thought he did a solid job and he's been good, defensively over the course of the year. He still has room to improve, I think. I mean, that's going to come. I mean, he's 17 years old. Most guys, their defense, really comes later on in their career. So to see him play, this level of defense already at 17, it really says a lot about him. And then I think the offense has been, it's been kind of, it's waxed and waned, but for the most part, it's been a little bit more positive than I thought it would be. In terms of the shooting, shooting 35% for three on the year. He's made some nice passes here. People are hiding their worst players on him, but he's making them pay a little bit. And so he just needs to maintain that level of aggressiveness. That's always been the thing with Dash is, wanting to be a threat and having the confidence and the assertiveness and the intensity to really, put his imprint on a game because he has all the tools. There's the body and the athleticism and the size and the skill, really. It's just a really matter of, finding that consistent level of aggressiveness to do it on a game by game basis, which we've seen, at times more than others here in the NBL. But I think, hopefully as the season moves on, he's going to continue to grow. And I mean, he's getting the minutes. I mean, they're giving him a lot of confidence. There really hasn't been any games that he hasn't played. And so, I mean, I think that's impressive for Melbourne to be able to juggle, being the best team in the league on one hand with the expectations to come along with that, having a really deep rotation of, quality veteran players, good Americans, but also being able to integrate a next star. That is not an easy thing to do. We're seeing that right now in Perth, finding that balance between, playing a young guy, but also trying to be competitive and win. It's not an easy thing to do at this level of competition. So you already have to take your hat off for Dean Vickerman.
Yeah, Dash Daniels, obviously, everybody's excited to see every assignment he gets. You mentioned Kareem Lopez a bit earlier, and he's a bit unique in terms of locking in that 2-year program under the Next Stars, not being eligible for the draft last year. And he had a bumpy offseason through injury, and he's been on a minutes restriction. And you mentioned trying to see him get back to that defensive elite side we saw last year, but he's shooting the ball really well. And in the minutes and the restriction he's had, well, what have you seen so far from Kareem?
I think he's been awesome offensively. I mean, last year he was really he was a transition player who attacked closeouts, would duck in, was a roller. He was limited offensively. I mean, as the year moved on, he started to make threes. I mean, really the breakers, it was garbage time at that point. It was kind of the season was thrown away and they went to him and he really responded the last, let's say 7-8 games of the season, 10 games even. This year, I mean, he's taken a big step, I think, with his ball handling ability. We're seeing him create off the dribble, play pick and roll, really, and, some of the rebounds that he's been taking, and then just the shooting, like you said, 45% for three on the year. I mean, that's really impressive. I mean, the level of confidence that he's displaying, so I think that, he's made a big jump for a guy who's 18 years old. You can see his body looks great. I mean, he's obviously worked on his frame quite a bit. And, he's coming off this injury. Apparently he's still not, he's just now starting to round the corner and get to 100%, from that back injury that he suffered 5 months ago. So I'm excited personally to see, does he have another gear that he can reach? And hopefully it does come on the defensive side, because I think we've seen, the Breakers really slide on that end this year. I mean, they've had some pretty bad performances on that side of the floor. And, and I think Kareem, especially like off the ball defensively and, with his closeouts and one-on-one, it's been a rocky road for him. He's looked a lot more like an 18-year-old than he did last year on the defensive side. Part of that might be like he's grown a lot here in the last, 2 years. His body is filled out. So like he's still kind of coming into his own physically, coming off that back injury. We don't know exactly how much that affects him, but I would like to see him make that jump on the defensive end, because if he does, with what he's showing offensively, like the guy he's a lock top 10 pick in my view.
Yeah, hopefully he continues to build on that game against the Hawks, where it was probably his best game of the season. He was outstanding. And Our next star who perhaps flies under the radar because of his persona on the court in Malik Lewis. He seems to be very quiet and reserved, but if anyone's got a chance to meet him, he is a hilarious human being. He's a high-level character around the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. He's kind of solidified himself in an elite defensive team for what Josh King needs. And he's coming off, obviously, in the offseason, a great showing of the Adidas Euro camp, an older prospect. But what have you seen from Malik?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great scouting job by Southeast Melbourne and the Next Stars program to make this pairing, because, I mean, that's what really this comes down to. We know whether a guy like a Malik Lewis, who is a role player, if he's going to be successful or not, it's finding the right team, finding the right situation, finding the right coach, who's really going to embrace what Malik Lewis is. And Malik Lewis is a perfect fit for Josh King with the way that they guard, putting pressure, full court, trapping and wreaking havoc, and really getting after people defensively. Malik Lewis has a 7'1" wingspan. You can put him on point guards. He's a very, very impressive one-on-one defender. And so, that's it's been really cool to see how Southeast Melbourne, like they're on this crazy run here. The last 4 games, they're winning, they're scoring, and Malik Lewis is playing a great role for them. And so, I think that's going to help him a lot. I mean, I think there's still a lot of question marks there from the NBA standpoint as far as his offense. He's, can he dribble? Can he shoot? Can he pass? Because you can't just be a defensive stopper in the NBA, but, like being 20 years old, like he is now, he's turning 21 next week, and being able to contribute to winning at the highest level, playing, 25 minutes a game, that's impressive. And so, when you're in the second round and you're looking for guys that, maybe to draft and stash or draft and bring on a two-way, I think Malik Lewis is going to be right in that mix.
Well, it's going to be fun because it's a throwdown this round, Malik Lewis versus Dash Daniels. They're two very different players, but it's always fun to see them battle. You mentioned that balance of teams obviously trying to win and with the development, and there's been some reporting yesterday from Olgun Ulic around the French next star of the Perth Wildcats in Noah, and in discussions with the NBL and the Wildcats about his situation. We've seen him have some really productive play in limited minutes. What are your impressions of him as a young prospect?
Yes, I was at the FIBA Under-19 World Cup this past summer and, got to watch him play out there. And I had concerns already then about his level of readiness from a physical standpoint to come in and play in the NBL as a big man. He's on the thinner side for sure. I mean, I think he's, 215, maybe 220 pounds. He really, his game is a center, but he's playing the four because, he's just too thin to bang with NBL bigs like Jesse Edwards, Tyrell Harrison, those kind of guys. And so he's a little bit caught in between positions, and that's hard because, Perth, there's a lot of pressure on them over there to win. And, this is a championship. This is an organization that gets measured in championships, and they haven't had the easiest past few years here. So I think it's not an easy situation for a guy like Noah to walk into, where like they have this level of expectation. There's a lot of pressure on the coaching staff, on management, and so I think it's like I was saying, it's the hardest balance to find between, the coach and the front office and the league and the player and the agent, everybody is, has their own goals. Everybody's pulling in different directions. And I'm not surprised, honestly, that like it's been hard for him to get on the court because just he is not ready. Like what exactly is his role at the NBL level right now? He's an energy guy, like is what he is. But, is he better at that role than David Aquera, like who's 23 years old and has been in, like this league for a while now. And so he needs to get his minutes too. And they're basically the same position. And so it's not an easy position to be in. I understand both sides of it. He's got his goals. I mean, when you're signing a next star, I mean, these guys are picking you over teams in France, teams in Germany, college, like the world is their oyster. He could be anywhere. And so I get it why, like from his standpoint, he's getting on a plane and traveling, God knows how many hours to Tasmania and Cairns and all these places and then to get 0 minutes. I mean, it's got to be frustrating for him. So I see both sides of it, but like, that's the challenge of the Next Star program is that like, you have to be at a certain level to be ready to play every game. And if you're not, then like, it doesn't look good for anybody.
You talk about the championship expectation in the Perth. I'm not sure it's ever been higher than it currently is because of what happened in the offseason. I don't like to throw the P round around, so I'm glad that you did that because that's a guy who knows his stuff right there. You mentioned the Next Stars program as in general, and with the pathways in today's landscape of getting to the NBA, what is the point of difference as a whole from the Next Stars program for the 2025, 2026? Everything that is to come in the future from what you've seen, what is that point of difference?
I think it's the platform that they're offering. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I mean, how good of a job the NBL does at marketing its players and, across social media and the NBA eyeballs. I mean, they're just always there. I mean, like every game that you watch, there's NBA scouts in the building, NBA GMs, they come, they spend a week or two, they come to the Blitz. They come during the season and they really study the league and they have these, deep relationships now. And it's a proven pathway. There's been guys who have come and have been lottery picks and have used this platform. And so I think that for certain players who, maybe don't see themselves as guys for college for whatever reason, who want to compete against men, and want to, just be focused full time on basketball and full time on their development. I think the NBL makes sense because, the infrastructure is there, the resources are there, the player development is there, and, it's a proven pathway. And so I think that's what still a lot of international players I think are going to look at. American players, I think, will be more challenging now just because, the dollar amounts that we're seeing now in college basketball are insane. But I think that if you can grab a Kareem Lopez and get him for 2 years, get him as a high school senior and then in his draft eligible year, I think it makes it so much easier for the NBL, in terms of their recruiting. Now, it's not easy always to get that level of buy-in, I think, from the coaches, just going back to our conversation we had about what's going on in Perth. And because it's really a two-way street, you need to find an organization that is committed to playing these guys. If you bring them, you have to be able to live with the ups and downs of their play. And the player also needs to perform at the same time. And so it's not an easy balance to find. And so, I think, and there's a certain type of player I think that works either, like a really high level defender, like a Malik Lewis or a Ryan Rupert or an Alex Sarr, who is, just so much better physically than most of the bigs in the league. And, or a guy who has great feel, like a LaMelo Ball and Alex Tui, Josh Giddey. I mean, guys like that. I think that's probably the prototype, I would think. But, they're going to have to get creative here because it's never been more challenging for the Next Star program to recruit in this landscape now. These guys have so many options as far as college basketball, but also in Europe, guys like are doing a great job. Mega in Serbia are doing a great job. There's teams in Spain, there's other teams in France. And so it's not easy, but I think that it is a proven pathway. And I think that for the right player, I think it can make a lot of sense.
Well, I could chat to you for hours about basketball again as someone who just dives into all different aspects of it. It's so refreshing to have this chat. Before I let you go, I do want to quickly touch on those former next stars who are now playing at a super high level. For this NBA season in particular, is there someone that stands out you're really keen to watch? Because I go back to Summer League, which is very different, but I watched Alex Sarr out there at the NBA Summer League, and I saw him struggle, to say the least, and everybody was having their bits to say. Summer League is not set up for skinny big men. We saw Wemby have one game where people were questioning Wemby, and now we look at it. But Alex Sarr has been unbelievable to begin this season. Is he someone that stands out? Is there others as well?
Alex Sarr, is having a phenomenal season so far. I mean, we're only 7 games in, but we've seen a level of buy-in from him in terms of like embracing the fact that I'm going to be a center now, because I think he was embarrassed going to Summer League, playing the 4, shooting threes every time, just like, screening and popping, and like not putting a body on guys, not showing any type of physicality. And people were laughing at him. And I think that stuff does affect these players. And so he, to his credit, he went into this offseason with a level of rigor saying, I'm going to work on my body and I'm going to be a guy that can be a center, but also, do everything on both ends of the floor. And so we're seeing him passing, we're seeing him make threes, but we're also seeing him, play a lot closer to the basket, doing a much better job of drawing fouls and, using his length on defense. And so I think it's been really impressive to see. I mean, and then, another next star who is playing incredibly well is Josh Giddey. I mean, like, what a great start to the season he's off to. I mean, the Bulls are winning. He's averaging almost a triple-double. I never thought, Josh Giddey would develop into this level of shooter, based on what we saw from him, 5 years ago when he was playing in the NBL. His body looks incredible. I mean, he's turned himself into a real player. I mean, and that's a credit to him that he went it and he got that big contract, but he's already working on the next one. I mean, that says a lot about the type of player and person that Josh Giddey is. And, for him to be able to, listen, it's only 6 games into the year, they're 5-1, but I mean, it's exciting to see what's going on in Chicago right now.
It really is. And all Australian fans are screaming out that it's a bargain. The Bulls got him for a bargain after the way that he's currently.
You got $100 million. He's fine, Pete.
Spot on. Mate, thank you so much for jumping on. Look forward to catching up at some other point throughout the course of this season. And then next time you're in town, if it's on the Gold Coast, twist my arm, we'll go up to the Gold Coast and do it all again.
That sounds great. I can't wait.